YouTube, this is the Hard Bastard, and Stephen Miller has caused a lot of quote-unquote controversy. He made the rounds on the morning shows, and the thing that I'm going to talk about is the comments on voter fraud and how people are acting outraged and, oh, it doesn't happen and there's zero evidence of it. Why would you claim all this? But before I do it, I have to actually make a retraction. This is a very good video to do that with, since some of the evidence of New Hampshire voter fraud we're going to be getting from the work of James O'Keefe. Now, I had been incorrectly making a statement about O'Keefe, and it's usually when I make this statement, it's when I'm defending him, because outlets like the Young Turks and CNN always point to the Planned Parenthood videos and how they were taken out of context, and I agreed with that. I did think that those Planned Parenthood videos were not completely honest. Now, I don't think it matters from the standpoint that what they're talking about, if you have a problem with it, you have a problem with it. They're talking about basically body parts of fetuses and aborted babies, and what they do with them, donating them to medical science and what have you. If you're opposed to that thing, you're going to be opposed to it no matter what. But here's the thing. He did not make those videos. I had a viewer who was on Twitter who pointed this out, and I really appreciate that. I'm not sure if he wanted me to plug his name, so unless I get specific requests to say your name, I'll keep it anonymous. But he had pointed out that O'Keefe did not make those videos, and that is actually true. So I apologize to the viewers. I retract saying that, and I apologize to James O'Keefe. And what's very interesting is in his Wikipedia page, he actually made 2 Planned Parenthood videos, and I just want to go over them very quickly. The first one was in 2006, and it said O'Keefe had Lila Rose, a pro-life advocate, go to Planned Parenthood and pose as a pregnant teenager while O'Keefe secretly taped. The staff attempted to persuade Lila to lie about her age so that she could be eligible for an abortion. When the tape was released, Tennessee lawmakers voted to end a $721,000 contract with Planned Parenthood. So he successfully busted the workers at that Planned Parenthood, busted them attempting to get a minor child to lie about her age so she can get an abortion. Would you not agree, regardless of what your position on Planned Parenthood is, would you not at least agree that was a successful sting? Was that a dishonest sting? No. Let's look at the one in 2007. In 2007, O'Keefe recorded audio of a visit to Planned Parenthood where he posed as a donor. He requested that his donation would fund abortions only for minorities, to which Planned Parenthood Vice President Autumn Kersey laughed and said it was understandable. How fucking disgusting is that? That's horrific. When the audio was released, Kersey was suspended and Planned Parenthood apologized for their staff's action. So another bust. That's a successful bust. Now, I wonder if the reason CNN and Cenk Uygur tried to pretend that his Planned Parenthood videos are the ones that take conversations out of context. I wonder if it's because they're trying to divert attention from the fact that his Planned Parenthood videos caught the truth. And I'm not necessarily anti-Planned Parenthood. I am a liberal. My position, I'm personally against abortion, but I don't believe my opinion should be enforced upon the entire population. With that said, I've done a video on abortion in the past. I think the left has gone fucking crazy on abortion, even going to the point of wearing I love abortion shirts. But anyway, this video is not about abortion. I just wanted to mention that because we're going to go over a couple segments in regards to Stephen Miller. And it's just amazing to me that you have these multimillionaire elite anchors who get paid to deliver the news, yet they have no ability to search the internet, to discover the exact same things that we're about to go over, where you would know. Now, we've already determined that they do bus people in. That's a fact. We have established that. The question is, to what level? I've made the argument that logically you can say that they do it, obviously, at a level where it's worth the time and effort. Now, Trump apparently is going to be investigating this, so I have no idea. The number of 3 to 5 million, it seems like Trump's pulling that out of his ass, but I have no idea. And it remains to be seen. So I have no problem if people say, in arguing this, oh, you know, you don't know the number, there's no way to know the number. Fine, but that's not what the tactic they take. They take the tactic of, oh, it's absolutely impossible. Why are you even talking about it? It's outrageous to discuss this. And then when it's being discussed, and not necessarily Stephen Miller, but there's another guy, I forget his name, who talks to CNN. When he's pointing out the evidence, they change the goalposts, and they switch it from talking about New Hampshire to talking about, countrywide. So, and one other thing, before we get into this, I don't like Stephen Miller. I've never liked Stephen Miller, okay? And Stephen Miller did say something, it's not included in this video, but I just wanted, for the sake of fairness, he said something that I was like, fuck yourself on, and that was, he said some shit like in the argument in regards to the immigration ban, he was saying something to the effect of Donald Trump has like a lot of presidential powers which are not to be questioned, and I was like, fuck you, I will question whatever the fuck I want to. So I think if you watch Stephen Miller talk, he is a rather grandiose individual. It's one of the reasons I don't like him. He talks out of his ass sometimes. You don't make comments like, I mean, no, you can make comments like that, but I'm going to completely push back on it. You have to have a system in place where the courts can counter something the president does. Here's the thing. I had no problem with the immigration ban being challenged in court. What I have an issue with is what they challenged about it. The part that I thought should have been challenged is people who had already been given green cards and visas should be allowed to come in. They fall under the Constitution of the country. So they should be allowed in. Now, if you want to vet those people more, I have no issue with that. You can. And then if they get through that vetting, then let them in. But of course, being that, and it's been documented, the judge in this case is an SJW, total Black Lives Matter supporter, is arguing not that, but arguing like because of some shit Trump said once during the campaign, it's a Muslim ban, which is demonstrably false. And also, at least, and I think I'm going to, like I said, I'll do a video on this, there's a section in which it seems like he's arguing that people who don't live in the country have some sort of rights, American rights. What are you talking about? Now, I'm not talking about people with green cards or visas. I'm saying he is acting as if people who don't live in this fucking country somehow have constitutional rights. That is fucking preposterous. Anyway, all of that aside, my dislike for Stephen Miller aside, let's analyze what they're talking about in regards to New Hampshire voter fraud.
Fraud as well. President Trump again this week suggested in a meeting with senators that thousands of illegal voters were bused from Massachusetts to New Hampshire, and that's what caused his defeat in the state of New Hampshire, also the defeat of Senator Kelly Ayotte. That has provoked a response from a member of the Federal Election Commission, Ellen Weintraub, who says, I call upon the president to immediately share New Hampshire voter fraud evidence so that his allegations may be investigated promptly.
First of all, it's impossible for this woman to not know what we're talking about here. That's completely dishonest.
Do you have that evidence?
I've actually, having worked before on a campaign in New Hampshire, I can tell you that this issue of busing voters into New Hampshire is widely known by anyone who's worked in New Hampshire politics. It's very real. It's very serious. This morning on this show is not the venue for me to lay out all the evidence, but I can tell you this. Voter fraud is a serious problem in this country. You have millions of people who are registered in 2 states or who are dead or who are registered to vote, and you have 14% of non-citizens, according to academic research, at a minimum, are registered to vote, which is an astonishing statistic.
You can't hold on a second. You just claimed again that there was illegal voting in New Hampshire, people bused in from the state of Massachusetts. Do you have evidence to back that up?
George, go to New Hampshire, talk to anybody who's worked in politics there for a long time. Everybody's aware of the problem in New Hampshire with respect to...
I'm asking you...
Now, there's a couple problems here. The way that Stephen Miller talks right here is stupid. Obviously, it's not everybody admits it. There's plenty of Republicans that deny it. I think partly because their ass is on the line if they deny it. See, this is why I don't like him as a surrogate. I really don't like Kellyanne Conway, other than the major fuck up with the alternative facts thing. She's fine. I don't like Stephen Miller. He's talking in a way too broad term here. But we're going to get into, once this is over, the facts about this and how it's inexcusable for George Stephanopoulos or any person who is a news outlet to not know what the fuck we're talking about.
As the White House senior hold on a second. I'm asking you as the White House senior policy advisor. The president made a statement saying he was the victim of voter fraud, people being bused from Massachusetts and New Hampshire.
The president was.
Do you have any evidence?
If this is an issue that interests you, then we can talk about it more in the future. And we now have our governance beginning to get stood up, but we have a Department of Justice and we have more officials. And the issue of voter fraud is something we're going to be looking at very seriously and very hard. But the reality is that we know for a fact you have massive numbers of non-citizens.
Oh, by the way, in regards to non-citizens, in the cursory research I did, the 14% number, I think you could dispute it. But there's definitely a percentage. Again, this is what's so ridiculous. The arguments that I saw from the left in regards to this, they literally were like, just dismiss all of it, don't even pay attention to it. I do think they had a legitimate argument that the methodology of the study in regards to the 14% was using a small sample size. But in their argumentation, they basically suggested that the number is 0. Of course the number is not fucking 0. That's ridiculous. So again, you can't get, I have no idea what the actual number is, but obviously I think people should agree that you should not have illegal immigrants registering to vote and voting. But what we're going to go over in this one, we're just specifically going to talk about New Hampshire and dead people, and it's amazing what happens. And that's not even busing people in. We've already established that they've bused people in. If you saw the previous videos in regards to Scott Fovel and Bob Kramer organizing and explaining not only how they've been busing people in for 50 years, but how they're going to be doing it and how they are doing it in states that have voter ID.
Registered to vote in this country. Nobody disputes that. And many, many highly qualified people, like Chris Kobach, the Kansas Secretary of State, have looked deeply into this issue and have confirmed it to be true and have put together evidence. And I suggest you invite Chris Kobach onto your show, and he can walk you through some of the evidence of voter fraud in greater detail.
All right, just for the record, you have provided absolutely no evidence.
Do you want him to break out a whiteboard? Obviously, this cannot be resolved in the remaining minute of this segment, you fucking retard, okay? However, it's like, what do you expect? How could he possibly... You're asking him for something. He's telling you what the problem is, where the evidence is. He cannot just present it all here. I think Stephanopoulos is being ridiculous. Now, it doesn't help the situation where Stephen Miller is like, everybody involved in politics on the Republican side agrees with this. That's not true. And you just set yourself up and give ammunition to the fucking media, which is dumb.
The president's made a statement.
The White House has provided enormous evidence with respect to voter fraud, with respect to people being registered in more than one state.
That I have not seen, but again, I don't understand what he's talking about. This is one of those instances when we're doing a video where you're like, the evidence is on Stephen Miller's side here, but I still have to like stop it and be like, no, you're fucking up. That's a bad surrogate. You need to have a surrogate that doesn't give fodder to the media. And this, and then saying that Donald Trump's power should not be questioned. What are you doing? It was like retarded. But anyway, aside from this.
People voting, non-citizens being registered to vote. George, it is a fact, and you will not deny it.
I mean, who the fuck do you think you will not deny it? Number one, of course he's going to deny it. Do you think you're an authoritarian? Like, do you see why I don't like this dude? I do not like this motherfucker. However, when it comes to New Hampshire, he is correct, and we're going to get into that.
That there are massive numbers of non-citizens in this country who are registered to vote. That is a scandal. We should stop the presses, and as a country, we should be aghast about the fact that you have people who have no right to vote in this country, registered to vote, canceling out the franchise of lawful citizens of this country. That's the story we should be talking about, and I'm prepared to go on any show, anywhere, anytime, and repeat it and say the President of the United States is correct 100%.
Well, you just repeated that. You just made those declarations, but for the record, you provided zero evidence that the President was the victim of massive voter fraud in New Hampshire. You provided zero evidence.
Anyone who's worked in New Hampshire politics is familiar with that issue.
You provided zero evidence that the President's claim that he would have won the popular. If 3 to 5 million illegal immigrants hadn't voted, zero.
Okay, See, do you see where he's moving the goalposts? First of all, we're talking about New Hampshire. Now, if you wanted to talk about the general, is Trump's claim that 3 to 5 million illegal immigrants voted? I think it was illegal votes, not illegal immigrants. Unless I'm crazy, I didn't hear him make that argument. So it's like, this is the shit show that is currently going on, because now it's like you're juggling bullshit from both sides. It's fucking ridiculous.
Evidence for either one of those claims.
Well, it's
Thanks
right.
a lot for joining us this morning.
The non-citizen voting issue is pervasive and widespread, and we are going to protect our country from voter fraud. We're going to protect our borders from terrorism, and we're going to protect innocent men, women, and children from violent, criminal, illegal immigrants that need to be removed from this country. And our country will create jobs, safety, prosperity, and security, particularly for disenfranchised working people of every background, faith, and ethnicity in this country.
You can start by providing evidence to back up your claims. Thanks for joining.
Decent close, a strong close there. I like that. But overall, I just don't like Stephen Miller. I think they have better surrogates that they can use. But let's discuss New Hampshire voter fraud. Now, what we have here, this is from 2012. There's no excuse to not know this. Look, regardless, now I don't even have to use it anymore, because I was about to go into the regardless of what you think of James O'Keefe spiel. Well, James O'Keefe is a lot more credible in my book, based on the fact that my understanding was incorrect, and he wasn't behind the bullshit Planned Parenthood videos. The ones that he did pointed out shit that they were doing that was fucked up. Now, this is from 2012. This is just one aspect of this. Remember, there's a lot of different lines here. There is busing people in. There is dead people, exploiting the fact that there's dead people in the rolls. Oh, did I clarify this? Let me clarify something. Debbie from Sane Progressive had made a comment on the video that I did in regards to, I was like kind of taking issue, and it seemed to me that Kyle from Secular Talk was making enemies where I didn't really think there were. But she called what she's talking about in regards to the Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton election, she calls it electoral fraud. Now, I think the methods that she talks about are different than what James O'Keefe reports on. They're talking about the machines that are fucked up, machines that flip votes, voter suppression. I think it's all illegal voting, but maybe she's technically right. But so I just want to clarify, because I think it's intellectually honest to allow people to define their own positions. So she views it as electoral fraud. What we're talking about here is voter fraud. So maybe also the reason she does that is to separate herself from this. But I don't know why you would, because it's all the fucking same. It's illegal voting. It's a rigged system, and these are the methods in which are used for that to happen. But if you want to, make that distinction, I have no problem with that. Now, this is in regards to, can you walk into a place and easily vote in the place of a dead person? Well, let's find out.
If a person walked in to vote in the 2012 New Hampshire presidential primary and said the names of multiple dead people...
Hello. Do you have a Reynold Karen on your list, please?
Karen?
Do you have a Roger Grew?
Do you have Paul Soucy?
You have a Thomas McCarran?
Hello there. Do you have Joseph Boucher?
Could he receive a ballot to vote without showing any ID?
And you got a Democratic ballot. There you go, Mr.
No.
Democratic ballot. I
take one of these chips, go to the round table behind me, and they'll give you a ballot.
I don't have my ID on me. I don't need...
Oh, I've left my ID in the car.
You don't need it.
do you know if there are any other dead people on the list? We're just checking to make sure there aren't.
It says that you voted.
How would I know if they were dead or not?
Okay.
How would I know if they were dead or not?
Okay.
Now, all this video is like 8 minutes of person after person after person being given a ballot for a dead person. Now, my question is simple. With this being the case, do you expect me to believe that there are not people taking advantage of this? Give me a break. Of course they're taking advantage of this. This is why you have to have voter ID. Now, here's the thing about voter ID. As usual, people on the left act as if it's ridiculous to suggest that people get an identification. Now, on the other hand, there is a nuanced conversation, because in some states, it seems like this is like the minority, but in some states, it does seem like they're bitches about it. They try to like make only certain forms of ID that are harder for poorer people to get. That is true in some exceptions. I've seen that. I don't believe that to be the overall legislation in most states. In most states, it's reasonable. And there have been situations where I forget who did the videos, but they interviewed a bunch of like white people in like a nice neighborhood, in like a very liberal, nice neighborhood. And they were like totally fucking racist, because they were acting as if black people like didn't know how to go to the DMV and get an ID. And then they took the same camera and went into Harlem, was it Harlem? I think it was Harlem. I'm not sure. But I think they were in New York. And they were asking, like, do you have any problem with voter ID? And all the black people were like, no, we can get ID. We have ID. What the fuck are you talking about? It was, like, completely insulting to them. So a lot of the crying you see on the left is politicians, exploiting black people, disrespecting black people, and trying to pretend that they are so helpless that they can't get an ID, and they exploit them for political purposes, which is fucking disgraceful. So you have that. Now, before we get into this other thing, now remember, what I just showed you was from 2012. This is recent. And before we do that, let's just go over this CNN. This just happened, I believe, today or yesterday, where the guy that Stephen Miller was talking about was Chris Kobach. And just watch how this girl, again, a highly compensated individual to report on news, apparently just does not have the ability to Google, doesn't look into anything, and she's going to now grill Chris Kobach over this.
3 to 5 million illegal votes. That is what the president says cost him the popular vote in November. As of yet, no evidence, though, has been offered to back that up. But they're now going even further, saying thousands of illegal voters in New Hampshire alone cost the president an election victory there. In a meeting with Democratic lawmakers just last week, Donald Trump pushed that very same point. And, I'm sorry, Control Room, what? I'm sorry, I'm just getting some control room issue. Anyway, moving on. In a meeting with Democratic lawmakers just last week, the president claimed that voters were actually bussed in from from Massachusetts to New Hampshire to vote illegally. Where is the evidence there? The president's senior policy advisor, Stephen Miller, didn't offer any of that up when he took to cameras over the weekend, but did have this to say.
And many highly qualified people, like Chris Kobach, the Kansas Secretary of State, have looked deeply into this issue and have confirmed it to be true and have put together evidence. And I suggest you invite Chris Kobach onto your show, and he can walk you through some of the evidence of voter fraud in greater detail.
Now, before we proceed, I would just like to say, if she was being honest, look, you don't have to accept, because we don't have the evidence right now. A lot of this is undergoing investigation. We don't have the evidence of an exact number, okay? So unless Trump is looking at something that we're not aware of, I don't see where he's getting the number. I don't know if you can say at this point that it's what cost him New Hampshire. Now, if New Hampshire was close, I don't recall, you know, I would say you could possibly say that it's likely. But the thing is here, if she was being honest, she would at least say, well, we know that Democrats do bus people in. I mean, I think that's been established. But of course, she's not going to say that because they don't even acknowledge James O'Keefe's videos. They don't even report on them.
All right, so joining me now to discuss is the Kansas Secretary of State, Chris Kobach, who's cited right there by Stephen Miller. So, Mr. Secretary, it's great to have you. Thanks so much for coming in. Stephen Miller says anyone who works in New Hampshire knows that this happened, except every big-name Republican there, Republicans I'm speaking to, say that it did not happen. Miller says, look to you, sir, for the evidence. Where is it?
Okay, well, I just got off the phone with the New Hampshire Secretary of State, Bill Gardner, and he said this. So, as you know, New Hampshire is a same-day registration state. And on Election Day, November 8th, 2016, 6,000 people registered in New Hampshire using an out-of-state driver's license as their form of identification. Of those 6,000, over 6,000, just under 3,000, so just under half, used a Massachusetts driver's license. Now, some of those are going to be legit. They're going to be people who just moved to New Hampshire and hadn't yet got a New Hampshire driver's license. But many of those will be out-of-state residents who voted in the state. And then we will have more information at the end of this month because New Hampshire just joined a 30-state program where we compare data across states, and Kansas is the host of that program, and we will see how many people voted in both New Hampshire and in another state among the 29 other states.
So here's the thing. So if you're going to have a real discussion about this, you can definitely point out the how clearly Trump is speaking. I don't think he has the evidence to back that up, but it's been established that obviously there's something going on here, and the level of severity is what we're trying to find out. So any reasonable discussion, if you want to counter him, would be, okay, Donald Trump said this number, but we don't yet have evidence to prove this number. However, we do know that there is a problem that at least needs to be addressed. But they don't do that. They act as if just the mere suggestion of this is outrageous.
We'll know exactly what that number is.
You truly do believe that thousands of people came in from Massachusetts to vote in New Hampshire on Election Day?
First of all, that is a retarded question. Secondly, he just told you that. He just told you that. Do you know so little about this subject that you think, I mean, did you see the mannerisms and the attitude in which she asks the question, as if it's like, it's almost like she's saying, do you seriously believe in aliens? He just explained it to you. Are you paying attention? I don't understand, like, why do you have to go full retard on this discussion? We have established that Democrats bus people in, and you can exploit dead people on voter rolls. So there you go, right there. There is evidence of that. The question is, how bad is it? But she won't even acknowledge the basics and acts like this guy is just a complete lunatic.
What I know from the New Hampshire Secretary of State's office is just under 3,000 registered on Election Day with a Massachusetts driver's license.
6,000.
What I'm
Oh my God. 3,000 were from Massachusetts. The grand total of out-of-state registers was 6,000. Like, how do you, I mean, really? Like, are you not even paying attention? She's not even paying attention. All she's doing, have you ever debated with a person that you can tell that all they're doing is waiting for their next opportunity to speak and they're not listening to a fucking word you're saying? That's exactly what's going on here. She has her talking points. She is either on her own or being instructed to act as if the idea of voter fraud is preposterous.
saying is 6,000 from some other state's driver's license. Of those 6,000, just under 3,000 were New Hampshire, were Massachusetts. And so we do know that a lot of people did that, and we will have data at the end of the month. How many of those 6,000 people voted in both New Hampshire and in one of the other states?
And another thing is, you're going to notice it was the same with Stephanopoulos. It's like, ha-ha, you can't show everything. Oh, you're going to have a result at the end of the month? Ha-ha, you don't have one right now. Bullshit. That's not... There is a problem with voter fraud. Again, is Trump being grandiose? Is he likely speaking out of his ass about the number? I would say probably. But again, we don't know. We will see at the end of this. If there's an open investigation, isn't it stupid to just proclaim shit until we have it? Like, if it turns out that there's nothing to this, which that's not even possible. I mean, what's the worst case scenario that happens here? They discover that Democrats are just retards and have been bussing people in for a very small result? I mean, is there anyone, I would like to know this, is there anyone that has gone over the O'Keefe videos in detail and is still of the belief that there is no voter fraud and that Democrats are not bussing people in, and that what the fight is? Republicans, look, are Republicans completely not guilty here? No, of course not. What Republicans do is they try to restrict voting. I think you can make the argument that in some states they try to make it more difficult to vote. And what Democrats do is they are trying to make it as easy as possible as vote, even going as far as to allow any person to vote in states where there's no voter ID, or have it in place where you can easily manipulate the rules to stack the deck for your candidate. And we're not even talking about the shit that happened in the Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders election. So again, this idea that it's insane to talk about this and that it's... Look, Donald Trump doesn't help himself when he comes up with these numbers. But are news people children? Are they just so retarded that they can't take what Trump says for what it is? I mean, do you realize how much more calm the news would be and Twitter would be if journalists were adults and were able to say, oh yeah, Trump is like that friend you have that's always talking shit in a grandiose manner, and you have to read between the lines. Again, can you argue that that's not presidential? Sure. But is that an excuse to light your hair on fire every time he tweets something?
On election day in
Mr. Secretary, data at the end of the month, and you're saying, no, but here, wait a second. Stephen Miller, over the weekend, just yesterday, said that thousands did vote illegally. He said thousands and thousands did vote illegally, definitively saying that this actually happened. You're saying that there's going to be more data coming at the end of the month, so you don't...
Well, what number do you think? I mean, let's be charitable and conservative. Would it not be in the thousands? Are they doing this if they're not at least getting a result in the thousands? We're not saying tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. We're simply saying thousands. If it's less than thousands, I would be stunned. I would say, what is the purpose of doing all of this? If you can't even get 1,000 votes switched, are you fucking kidding me? Or not? It's not really vote switching. It's 1,000 fraudulent votes. What would be the purpose of all this if you can't at least get it into the thousands? Like, why do you have to be clueless in regards to, shouldn't you know something about this?
Do you have the evidence?
He just explained you what the premise for it is, and that we're going to get a final number at the end of the month, but of course it would have to be in the thousands. Oh my God.
Well, at the end of the month, New Hampshire just joined the program, by the way. So we will. This is the first time we will be looking at New Hampshire's numbers. No, because what Bill Gardner had already made public the fact that we had 6,000 people register in New Hampshire on Election Day with another state's driver's license. That's the key clue.
I love how he's really trying to explain it to her. He's really trying. You're either talking to a dummy or a propagandist. That no matter what you say, they are just going to paint the picture for the audience as if this is just ridiculous.
There. So what we don't know what percentage of the 6,000
does not
voted in two
fraudulent
states.
Votes. Voter registration problems does not equal fraudulent votes.
Sure. So let's step back and look at the big picture. So of the 30 states, we have about 3 million people who are registered in more than one state, and that's not a crime. That's just an administrative bookkeeping.
Including President's son-in-law, including the President's Treasury Secretary.
Yes, but obviously would they not be the ones who aren't voting? I would be stunned like a motherfucker if it turns out that Steve Bannon voted in 2 fucking states. Do you know how stupid you would have to be to do that? There's no fucking way that he did. Bringing those people up, that is not what... Do you think that they are looking for that? Of course not. They're looking for people that voted twice. Now, again, I don't know why, and maybe I'm trying to do his argument for him, if you can argue that, but why aren't you bringing up the dead people? Why aren't you bringing up other aspects of this? I don't understand. But you know what? Like I said, I've never been in this situation. He's doing a decent job trying to explain to this dummy the issue that if you simply take the numbers he's talking about, again, how would it not be in the thousands?
Exactly, yeah. And many of your viewers are probably registered in more than one state. But what is a crime is if you actually vote in both of those states or in more than 2 states.
Of course it's a crime.
And every
but where is the evidence of this widespread, rampant, millions of people voting?
Okay, she totally just moved the goalposts. We're talking about New Hampshire. It's ridiculous to suggest that it would be in the millions in New Hampshire. Now we're off the rails into fucking retardville. We're talking about New Hampshire. I guess she's trying to bring the general in. Anyway, the point is this. This goes back and forth for another 4 minutes, and she doesn't get it. Fine. Let's go to O'Keefe's latest video. We'll close on this. And this is New Hampshire basically asking poll watchers or people working at the polls if you can illegally vote, and they're like, yep, sure. If you're a Democrat, sure.
How long do you have to stay in New Hampshire to vote today?
Let me just go back.
How long do you have to stay in New Hampshire to vote today? There's no requirement.
Stay, okay. Or I don't, but I'm not living here as of right now. I'm just looking to vote here.
You have intention of living here indefinitely?
Not indefinitely.
You want to vote today, you might tell them that you're with your friend and you're here indefinitely, which sounds like it's true.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
And if
yeah, not 100% true, but I understand,
but you're here indefinitely, and you have your address at your friend's house.
Okay.
And then you'd be able to vote, and if otherwise, I don't know.
How long do I have had to be in New Hampshire to vote today?
Probably 48 hours.
48 hours? Okay. How long do I have to stay in New Hampshire to vote today?
If you're here today, you vote, you can be gone.
Now, again, just logically, are you telling me that there are people not taking advantage of this? That this is just, oh yeah, no, just a couple hundred people, nothing to, that's not even what CNN argues. CNN argues that it's ridiculous to even discuss this. It's a preposterous conspiracy theory that is damaging to our democracy. When you combine all of the evidence that James O'Keefe has in his videos, and then you go over, and like I said, if Debbie wants to be separate, fine, but then you go over to Debbie and you look at all the information that she has, how do you not agree that there is a major fucking problem that needs to be addressed before another election takes place? There is a nuanced discussion to be had here. Again, Donald Trump doesn't help the situation with what he's saying, but he is correct. He's just, I think the numbers are off. Unless, like I said, unless he has some sort of information that we don't, or maybe there's something I'm missing. Maybe there's some studies that I'm missing. But regardless, yes, you can talk about whether it's appropriate or not for Donald Trump to speak in the manner he does. But when that conversation is over, it should then move on to this, because this is actually happening. So when you see all of these people, as much as I don't like this motherfucker, I really do not, but when you see these people acting as if he is just declaring just the most ridiculous bullshit, there's actually something to it. Yes, what he said and the manner he said it is fucking ridiculous, but there is something to what he's saying. I would suggest the Trump administration put better people on the Sunday shows that don't give ammunition to the media to distract from the subject. But even, when they do that, they're still going to do it. So I guess maybe the Trump strategy is, what's the fucking difference? If they're going to make up bullshit anyway, why don't we just bring out like our fucking dude who is like, fuck all of you, we're right 100%, fuck what you say, and be belligerent. Maybe that's the strategy. I mean, that's generally Trump's strategy. So we'll see. But the bottom line here, when it comes to New Hampshire, yes, there is voter fraud taking place. That is the bottom line. Anyone telling you different, like I said, come to me with a refutation of this, of these videos. You tell me where they are edited deceptively or taken out of context, or the whole Scott Fovel, Bob Kramer shit. You tell me where all of those things are taken out of context. I think they are absolutely damning. And if we had a real press, those videos would have been the #1 fucking story during the election. I am the Hard Bastard. Thank you for watching.